that new information? Is that every 24 hours, or you went through this in a previous session, but how often does that occur?
There's a setting on this, and so if you go down into the details, I can show you here. What is it looking like? Okay. You'll notice down here in settings, you've got this thing of the cache. So by default, we embed it and cache their context. So if you want to update that, you just hit manual, the refresh of the cache. And if you want it to run with every single time that you run, which really does slow down the speed at which we're making answers, you can always check for updates. So in particular, what we would recommend is as you do a new doc, just click this refresh cache, and then it'll do the whole process of re-embedding and doing all of that. And it does that just once. And then for folks that have kind of a smaller data set, like Shadi on yours, for example, for ION, you've just got this always check for updates, which means you can change your Google Docs or anything else in real time. And then it's always going and pinging those URLs, seeing if they changed, and if they did, putting that back into the database. But for you guys, Rob, I would just encourage you to probably just click this button to manually refresh it.
Future set, we're not going to be the ones updating this data set. It would be like where we provided someone who's monitoring the questions and answers coming through and trying to get where we're not redirecting a call. And so we wouldn't necessarily know. Is there maybe a request to put in where you could put at a time box that refresh to happen, say hourly or every 12 hours or something like that? Might be a feature enhancement we'd love, just so that we wouldn't be responsible for clicking that. But that helps a lot. Would that be actually in the knowledge base itself, or the settings within the actual voice run?
In your particular case, you have those split. I think
Yes.
that's actually going to be in the knowledge base. So you would update
in the knowledge
there.
base itself. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. But would you mind, while I'm taking notes, just bringing up that agenda so people can, what's working, and then what's blocking the deployment to real users, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the place that we want to get everybody. And so we're super curious about anything that's getting in the way there, and we're prioritizing those things.
I feel like for the city of Seattle, we're still working out a few anomalies in the response. There's that the first time I would text or call, suddenly I would get a different language. I know we kind of fixed that thing, but it's still I'm still noticing that now and then. But otherwise, I think 90% of the time the results are really great. There's still some scenarios where it is going outside the knowledge base, but for well-intended questions, the answers are really really good, and that kind of makes that scoring process and the bulk evaluation a bit trickier. But I think so. Yeah, that's and then we're running into some roadblocks in integration with the API integration with our systems. I think a lot of the I think I can reach in, but and I can pull some information from an interaction perspective, but I ran into some blocks in terms of how we can access history and things like that. And looks like there's going out is fairly straightforward from the GUI workflow, grabbing some data from outside. So that is fairly straightforward, but coming in, it's going to be a little bit tricky. And to access the standard system variables for the telephony API and the analytics API, I think that's kind of where we're just running into some roadblocks.
Okay, it might be worth just going a little deeper on that one. I feel like I don't quite have enough context to diagnose it at this point in terms of which variables and which APIs.
Yeah. I booked at 10 o'clock with Ambika. We can either go through then or now, either way.
Yeah, probably better. And then Dave could also help out too. The only thing on the different language part that I would recommend is, I think, by default, the LLMs are pretty good at responding in the language that the user spoke. And so it may be that because we're saying explicitly, please respond in the language of this user, and you're a multilingual bot, we've actually found that that may be kind of over prompting it to try out different languages and try those things. So I might, see if you remove those lines, actually, Gokul, that, one, it'll probably respond in the language the user said anyways, but hopefully these kind of false language switches will be less likely to happen.
Yeah, I tried in some of the southern India language like Tamil and so on. It seems like the results set as slightly different, but it is trying to stick within the RAG. But yeah, it's interesting.
Wow. I mean, the other thing that you guys could do that I might recommend too is you could adjust the flow to basically make people explicitly state their language at the beginning of the call, right? Rather than and so giving it that direct hint, I would imagine will probably increase reliability as well. And this goes for you too, Shadi, which is it might be worth, as we're thinking about this, to get people to explicitly sort of put that in. I think we put that in as like the default 4 languages when they come into WhatsApp for the first time, but that could help too. And then you guys mentioned, I was curious in terms of your UAT testing, how are you recruiting users?
I think we're reaching out to a few groups of the mayor's office and also team that we have a team for user experience for our website. So we have them as well. And as far as I don't think there's any specific rules around it, but we're looking at some of the user bases and make it as varied as possible.
Yeah, I can help out as well on this one. So we do have a user experience group, Michelle Ringgold. You'll see her name pop up. And there's at least 3 layers on this one. So there's an internal review. And so mayor's office and others are going to have some voice in some of the testing people that we tap. And that's going to be kind of like the mini soft launch. And then there are also going to be some different language groups and equity groups that we'll define and tap in as well. And then we'll scale up. That group has yet to be defined, but we're going to target somewhere around the 500 user experience level to say, all right, this is going to give us enough of a span and scope. But I think I heard Rob Plus's voice grumble there, but go for it, Rob Plus.
No, exactly what you're saying is that our usability group has defined personas of what they've seen the public and what encompasses our customer landscape here in the city of Seattle. And so they target within those focus groups to try to make sure that our usability testing is successful on these public facing apps. So that's what we've already through Angela are already doing that outreach with Michelle and trying to get people lined up right now.
So I think this goes for everybody, but I can imagine the mayor's office in particular may have feedback on like tone and style and voice and speed. And so those are the softer elements of these things. And so, that's one of those things where you guys can iterate by sort of describing the tone and the kind of style that you would like there, if you want it to be different than what's already there. And then I think, especially for the OpenAI voices, there are about 15 different voices. And so, if there's a discussion of which one of those today, given, kind of the constraints that we've got, best represents the voice of Seattle, I can imagine that you might want to do a pass on it, or they may have feedback. I'm just kind of preempting it.
Hey, Sean, along those notes, this is Mike at the city. So we, it's kind of interesting. I think that one of the things that the voice bot does is you can tell it to speed up or slow down, which I thought was quite amazing, actually. And we have not built in any instructions on guiding people to do that, but we just kind of stumbled across that and it's quite impressive the way that it, you know, will either speed up or slow down based on what you request through the call itself. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's definitely some scenarios there that you might want to sort of throw into your red teaming hat, which is, you know, do you want people to tell it, please speak like a pirate? Please tell me this in a sing-song voice. You know, please do this while screaming, right? Like there's different ways to subtly, you know, interact with these things in jest. And so I might encourage you to do that. Just, and you know, are those features or bugs are then things for you guys to decide.
That's a good tip.
Like the other thing that I heard that somebody else did is they left it on while they were playing piano, and it was able to tell them about the chord progressions they were making, which has just kind of boggled my mind. And I don't even think OpenAI or any of these guys have actually talked about. It's just an emergent property of LLMs. It's incredible.
Well, one other thing, you know, as like for that voice bot, so we are moving down the path of, and I don't want to eat up all the time with City of Seattle stuff, but we're moving down the path of merging, you know, one bot for voice and for text. I think we're still doing some evaluation on whether we want different instruction or different response coming out of that. However, we are curious, could you speak at all to whether we'll be able to kind of separate out the analytics portion of that, and how that might impact kind of the analytics, whether people are coming in and interacting from voice or from the text? Will there
Yeah.
be kind of any difference there?
There's a parameter that we send over to the analytics called is_voice. And so, you know, each one of those, each call, at the end of the call, that's sent to the analytics script. And then with every incoming SMS, it's sent to the analytics script. So you'll be able to separate
Okay,
those
perfect.
two
Yep,
and see, you know, differences in it.
Awesome.
One other change that we did make actually, to sort of prevent you guys from, you know, doing things like right now, if you're using voice on Twilio, we will override your language settings when it comes in from Twilio, and use the GPT-4 audio piece. And so if you change that model, it's actually only changing it for the SMS portion. It's not changing it for that Twilio portion today. We'll re-enable that later, but we didn't want you guys to accidentally break yourself. It's just on the side.
And then there's a part two on that is for the after call, we're sending a SMS response. Is there a way to interject in a would you like this or not? Or I mean, we're trying to think even prefacing with the response and also proceeding with the response, and how is that just something we would add in the instructions, or is that something that requires some additional coding? That's kind of our next steps, is like, hey, if we needed a disclaimer to start off the conversation, or giving them the option, would you like us to text you with this information?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Rather
just
than,
a function call at the end right now.
okay,
And so right now that function call always runs. And so if you want it to be optional, you would answer that question. And then, you know, if they say yes, then call the function. So it would just be a matter of doing the prompt update and then changing that function to basically be a prompt function rather than an active function.
okay.
Tom, I'm kind of curious from your guys' sense of like, you know, plan on getting some real teachers to give feedback on these things and how that's coming along. And
I mean, we're still working through some technical hurdles. So we were actually hoping to get it out to some teachers next week, but we're pausing on that. We were going to have a conference that we were going to like sort of intro demo and get some initial feedback on. And then our plan after that will be, once we sort of reach past these technical hurdles, we do have a pretty solid group of teachers in our professional learning community. So we have teacher leader in residences and community coach, coaches that like work with us internally, so we can share that with them. We started doing that initially. We had a very small group when we were doing our first initial testing with lessons. So the small group, we can expand out to that. And then we definitely want to work with our sales and PL team to identify teachers to give us like a sort of broader scope of teachers with different personas, new teachers, experienced teachers, teachers with, high diverse populations, for differentiated instructions, things like that. So that's what that'll be the next step, will be to sort of get this like focus group of teachers and then sort of go out from there to make sure we have those personas and we're hitting those needs in terms of the output that we're getting.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would just encourage you guys to share here, best practices, because I end on the WhatsApp group or email, because, as you guys go and you're getting, feedback from anybody, like I feel like, especially Teach for India, we'll appreciate that stuff. And Sadi, as you're beginning to go out to real people and real citizens, right? I feel like the city of Seattle people will benefit from that too.
How is Teach for India's progress?
Nitesh, can you speak to that if you're still with us?
Sure, yeah. We just launched a version to a small group of our teachers and teacher coaches today. We are doing this A/B testing with the smaller group. So we have like two versions of the bot. One where the bot is directly giving answers based on the knowledge base to the questions. And second, where it's not directly giving answers, but asking more probing questions to the teacher to support them, give more context or even come up with the answers. So we are curious to know what would the teachers prefer more, whether they would like to see a direct verbose answer to the question or get probed more or get into the depth of the question and then get an answer. So we thought we'll do an A/B testing with both the groups. So that's what we have just launched today, and we'll be monitoring how the folks are interacting with it. And we are doing a week-long testing with this smaller group, and then we'll launch like a survey form with them to understand what is their preference. So that's our version 1. For version 2, we are thinking to then expand this to integrate with our CRM, where we have a lot more contextual data of the teachers as well, based on their performance evaluations that have happened, and they have received feedback on how they need to manage classrooms, etc. So how we tap into the existing data of the teachers while giving responses instead of it being something very generic, which they can even get using on any online tool. So that's the version 2 that we are envisioning, where we maybe also integrate this with our CRM and pull in more relevant data for the user who's interacting. So that's the roadmap we are working towards. So today was our version 1 launch that just happened this evening.
And your A/B testing is it's the same knowledge base. It's just the difference in terms of how probing the questions are before answering.
It's in terms of the prompt, Tom. The knowledge base is the same. The prompt is tweaked for both the versions.
Gotcha.
And then just preempting some future issues that I can imagine then, Nitesh, is ultimately that data about the teacher is sort of additional context and a parameter that would be kind of at the top of your prompt that you're going to pull in about that teacher. And so hence, when you set up these golden questions, kind of like I think the stuff that Peter is doing, you will have two inputs that's likely to come through. One being the context about the teacher, one being the question that teacher asked when you're setting up these kind of golden evaluation and those things come through. Anyways, you'll get there, but the evaluation parts will have to be slightly changed to sort of then do testing and kind of model testing, but that can be set up.
Yep, that makes sense. Sure. Thank you.
And then Shadi, how are you doing on your end in terms of rollouts, issues that are blocking it? Super curious.
Yeah, sure. So the chatbot is still with the frontliners. It takes a little bit of back and forth with the final approval, the institutional final approval. And finally, we got the green light. We're starting the deployment of the chatbot within migrant communities next Monday at the clinics. when we said we're gonna make them sign a written consent, and within the written consent, we are sharing terms and condition of use, also paper-based, and they have to sign it. It's all this, UN system is a little bit more skeptical than other organizations. And we think since the workflow is huge, basically they can see more than 100 migrants per week. So we aim that 100 migrants will scan a QR code for the next week from Monday to Friday. The only thing that management keep nagging about it is the feedback system is not that good. The thumbs up, thumbs down is not enough. We need a scoring thing, maybe from 1 to 5 by the end of the conversation. I convinced them that it's a piloting. We can still have the terms and condition part of the consent for as a pilot phase, but maybe later on we can have terms and condition of use to be like a link or to show up when the welcome message, when the person just start chatting with the chatbot, and they were fine with that. What is
the only, just to comment briefly of, we're happy to do a session to show you guys how to, integrate such that the first thing people have to do is see like an I agree, and here's the link to the terms and the conditions. That's a fairly straightforward set of changes, and we can show you like the best practices and help you with the update on that one. It's actually the first time we've heard of this 1 to 5 feedback thing. So that one might be sort of a longer if we wanted to look deeply at doing that. But the consent part, I feel like, is be under an hour, hopefully, to make that work. It makes the evaluation things a little more complicated, but the actual experience update and the prompts update is only about 10 lines of difference the other end.
Anyways, we fixed it for the moment. Yep, it can be a written consent.
And then, obviously super curious to see what people actually ask, right? That's where the rubber will meet the road, and then we'll learn a lot, and we'll discover all the things we didn't think.
Absolutely, but just we decided that it's not going to be like the QR code, show to every migrant as only who will be referred, so we make sure that this person is trying to navigate health services, because we have other direct assistance, which is not related to, like, the person, their first request is not related about health. We are trying to avoid that, just focusing on those who are going through a health assessment. And after that, the doctor or the nurse can say, if you're looking for more information, or if you really want to make your life easier, and you can use this, so you can find out where to go based on the referral letter or the verbal referral that is provided for them.
So one other thing that we should just double check is, given that you are going to start this sort of spigot of real user data, it's a good time to double check your analysis scripts to make sure that, hey, we're categorizing things, and in particular, if there are questions, and honestly, what we've seen in the past is you're just going to have to sort of look at the questions that are coming in and then saying, is the categorization reasonable that we're doing that? And there's ways to kind of automate that, but getting down to the root of looking at conversations, seeing what people are really asking about, seeing what the bot says, and then doing your sort of gut check of, is that reasonable? I find that I gain a lot of intuition out of that. So as that begins to come through, I would highly encourage you to do that, and then you'll end up revising your analysis script so that you can do more with that data at scale, and sort of discover the places where this thing's not living up to expectations as well.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody else want to share kind of like what other things that are blocking you, things that are keeping you up?
I mean, I can share if anybody's interested in some more of the technical explanation around what's keeping us up at night.
Please go ahead.
So the primary issue we're running into is that our knowledge base data is all remarkably self-similar. So there aren't a lot of distinguishing characteristics between the 3,000 pages that we're indexing. And that's leading to situations where we can't write a query against the RAG database that will return reliably a specific lesson, for example, which is ultimately a super important part of being able to contextualize the user's query. So we're currently holding out, trying to get a little time with Dave to actually augment the knowledge base with appropriate metadata so that we can target specific documents more reliably.
Yeah, the other thing that could be helpful there too is you can ask him about it, but we have a little bit of, I can just show you the section so that everybody can kind of see this. We have hold on, I'm gonna share your screen or share my screen and see if I can replace it. Are you guys seeing this? So if in particular, we have this piece right here, Peter, which we encourage most people not to go ahead and edit, but this is basically what this does is this is the prompt that looks at the conversation and actually makes the search query to your RAG database. And so in particular, if you wanted to do things like input, oh, this is a 6th grade teacher who's teaching math. And when you're hence making that RAG database, always put in, this sort of filter for 6th grade math. This is a place you could put that, and that will end up affecting the query that goes to your RAG database. And so in addition to like looking at the synthetic data paths, and you can see what this is asking. This is basically the user asked, how do I irrigate with feelings? And this is the actual query. So you can kind of manipulate what the user asked before you do this RAG query. And so that it might be worth mucking there in addition to thinking about the synthetic side. So.
I have actually already done that.
Great.
And I've been able to frame queries that are quite specific about which lesson and so forth should be returned, and the results are still wildly divergent. And that's just because most pages also list the number 6 and lesson 5 and the word lesson. Right?
Yeah.
And in close proximity. It's one of those things where we actually need to be able to specify this. It doesn't just contain the word lesson 5. This is the canonical home of lesson 5.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like the brainstorm between you and Dave will be fruitful on this. There's other techniques of graph databases, supplementing metadata. Search is a big field, is all I'd say.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. Otherwise, I did also spend some time last week playing with the custom evaluator that you shared, and working to extend that with a separate evaluation based on a description of the important qualities of a good answer. So not just a similarity to a known good answer, but what specifically about that answer was good. And that much works and is really interesting to see. I'm still trying to get minimum maximum aggregation out of that evaluator.
Could you share that evaluator? I just think, we're all learning in this space. So like, how did you change that definition? I just think the actual prompt would be helpful to everybody else here. If you're comfortable doing that.
I am comfortable with doing that. It's half torn apart at the moment, and I can only save it every 30 minutes.
Okay.
Because something in the back end is not actually marking the evaluator as completed when it finishes, and so
we
hitting
had this little weird thing. Got it. So we should just make sure that your account is basically activated for transparency too. That was an issue that we found out. I don't know if your account has been marked as such on that. We can look into that.
I have concurrency too.
Okay.
But again, I still have to wait 30 minutes for the thing to time out.
Okay. Dave should be able to look at that bug in particular for you, TJ, too. You've add that to the list.
So sorry
okay.
to raise my specific bugs. I'm happy to share this evaluator
It's
once
good. It's good. Sounds good.
Better solidified.
Okay. Just in the last 17 minutes, we wanted to sort of reflect that we'd heard on privacy needs and see if there was anything else. Ambika, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Oh. Sorry, I think I just lost a bunch of my tabs.
No, I've got it up if you want. I can share too.
Wait. Sorry,
Yeah, I've got it.
let me just pull it up again.
So yeah, we just wanted to make sure that we're capturing everybody here in terms of, privacy pieces of, things that we heard, or don't show the telephone numbers in the app to like customers, hash numbers before they're sent into our servers, just request to auto delete conversations after a certain number of days. Peter, you had brought up, warn detective secrets are being exposed in code. Any other kind of privacy issues that people have heard from your bosses or, compliance things? We'd love to hear about them here. Just wanted to try to aggregate that before we, schedule work.
I mean, we were trying to just forward think on what people might ask us questions and just randomly start communicating, whether that be PII or, like, here's my address. What is the look? Because it's recording all, just what is, yeah, PII, I think is the most common one. I can't see someone putting in a PCI or HIPAA information, but just kind of like, here's my, what would, is there any filters we can look for, like sensitive information types coming in, and obfuscate that? Yeah.
You can. The question will be, like, if somebody says, here's my address, what's the thing that's most relevant to me? You kind of want that address. I mean, it's up to you guys, but it seems like you'd want the system to be able to take that address into account. Like, I live in Green Lake, before giving the answer if you think that's appropriate. And so there's a little bit of, when do you want this obfuscation to happen? Do you want it to happen before the response is given? Do you want it to sort of take that PII, process it, and then after the fact, make sure that we're getting rid of that PII so it's not maintained anywhere and it's immediately deleted? And so I guess that would be my question to you guys of, what do you want to do with it if it is identified? And then the identification piece you can probably do in the analysis side, just to say, oh, this showed up. That might be another good one.
1000%. I think in our response to that, and this might be different for everyone, is that we just need to know where it is being stored. So if that is, if we can obfuscate it within the history, right, and with any sort of the metrics within GUI, but transfer it over to, a third-party database, which is hardened, right? Like, it just has to be, where are the locations that the data is getting stored, and be able to flag those and then control it accordingly. So if we do want to save the phone numbers on our end, but we want them obfuscated within the GUI metrics, like that sort of flexibility would be really beneficial for us.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the obfuscate part is captured, but the, how do we harden it in our internal storage? We should do better. Yep.
Can I add on that? Thank you, Rob, for bringing up this. I think this was discussed also with IWAM, and I just remembered it now. Our chatbot is about navigating health services, and one of the IWAM staff asked me if we can also auto-delete if a lot of migrants, they keep sending their travel document, their prescriptions, their medical reports, like screenshotting their x-rays, I don't know, things like that. So if we can just auto delete them, because we don't need them, to be honest. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, in general,
Shadi also
don't like.
mentioned, sorry,
Go
Shadi
ahead.
mentioned location also, right? For like users might.
Location would be interesting because we ask them to share the location so they can go to the health service. But I'm thinking about taking pictures of the prescription, the medical report, their travel document, because many of them also they hold refugee cards, so this is a sensitive thing, or they might be irregular in Tunisia, so they are waiting for their travel document because they don't have passports. All these things, any documents, we don't. I don't think it's going to be useful, especially medical ones.
We definitely have tools that can identify, oh, this looks like a passport, or oh, this looks like a prescription. Um, and then it's a question of like how best to take action on that. I guess my question would be, if we had the work in there that was simply auto deleting all conversations, say within 24 hours of that happening, right? So that like the metadata of the conversation or your categorization data is gone or is there, but the actual conversations are all deleted. Would that be sufficient, or is that like too big of a hammer? I think we'll have to kind of feel that out a little bit.
I will say that's a big hit. Just deleting sensitive information, because the rest of the information, since it's anonymous and then the consent, we insist on the fact that user should not write any personal information. We can hold the stick from the middle, so no medical report, no passports, no ID, no, like I said, physical thing that are taking a photo, but anything else maybe might be useful to evaluate and to understand also the needs
Yeah.
at some point. Yeah.
No, obviously, if we delete all of conversations, then it's going to be difficult to do analysis to figure out how to make these systems better too. So there's a balance to play out there. Okay. Anybody else with suggestions and needs around privacy in particular?
Sean, I had one. Probably it falls under more of security than privacy. The interesting case we had where a chatbot started interacting with our bot, and that both the bots went into an endless loop of fallback messages to each other. So just wondering, one, if you can maybe set a threshold on the number of conversation with a particular number if it's on WhatsApp, or maybe at least send an alert to the team so that we can manually monitor and take some action like blocking it. So yeah, that was one piece.
We wanted to give you a sense of what we've heard today and how we've prioritized it. And you'll notice that one in particular is stack ranked right there. These ones are very much in progress, if not about to be released.
Perfect.
So no, we fully hear you on that. But we wanted to give a sense of like, okay, how are we thinking about the work that we've got? But yes, that one's well covered, I would say, and needs to get done because you've now run into this 3 times, and it I think ate up like $50 of credits, and ends up shutting down the bot, and I feel like this denial of service thing is going to happen to everybody, and we need more infrastructure around it. So what we are thinking is you'll be able to block numbers. You'll be able to set limits of messages per day per conversation, and then set limits on the length of calls as well. The voice equivalent.
Sounds great. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Anything else on the kind of privacy news stuff? Nice. Keep those coming if they're there. As we're sort of finishing up, we wanted to give a sense of like, this is what I think we saw some of the better eval stuff, and this remembering the mapping parameters we demoed today. The lockdown Peter stuff that you mentioned should be rolling out imminently, such that only people that are part of your workspace are going to be able to see any of these things, unless you've explicitly said that a run is public. And so expect that one to be coming up shortly. And then I think City Seattle folks and a couple others asked for this, like, can the LLM end the call? And then we'll get into, the work around trying to handle these DNS attacks. And then, you can see the rest of the list as we're going down to make that work. The only thing I was going to point out is for 8 and 9, per conversation memory, there are some, if you want to get unblocked on that one, there are some techniques that we've got where, you just do a function to look up some stuff based on the telephone number of who's calling you. And then, at the end of the conversation, you can write that back. And so that's a reasonable workaround for people that kind of want that. And then similarly, and I think we ran into this City Seattle, we've got great support for Office 365 access, but if you want to serve up a private document for Google, right now, you've just got to share it with this weird email address, and that will allow our system to be able to read it. And we'll have better UI around those things, but those are the 2 workarounds now. And then we just wanted to say, in terms of other stuff that we're working on, just so you guys know, in the coming weeks is, doing search, in particular, allowing you guys to basically create new telephone numbers on both WhatsApp and voice as extensions. So you don't have to do this like Facebook, or you don't have to do this Facebook and kind of like, number provisioning process. You'll be able to call like a general number and put an extension 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hopefully it'll do the right thing. We're also looking at like tags for organization. Like I'm sure as for City of Seattle and others, as the number of shared workflows gets bigger, it's nice to be able to tag things of like, oh, this is production, this is, development, this is related to this project. So hopefully those organization tools will come in. And I'll talk about these later, but these are the things that we're trying to do in the future. So I just wanted to give you guys a sense of, hey, how are we thinking about the roadmap for the next probably 2 months? So it'll take us to knock out all of it. Okay. I think that's most of the big content for today. Any other remaining questions?
Sean, I do have one question. Can we on our SMS wrap up, we're doing that wrap up summary and exporting, can we put in kind of an opt out, like if somebody doesn't want that wrap up text, that they can kind of deny that, or we can take that offline for the future too?
I think the way to do that is you would have to remember that for that number. And so we'd probably want to remember. So you just have to store that information. This sort of goes back to per conversation memory. Right. So basically we'd say, great, this person opted out, would write that to some database somewhere. And then every time then we would read that at the end of the call to see, did they opt out? And then not send them the message, right? That would be the way to kind of implement it. So you've got to, we don't have a primitive right now because we don't have that per conversation memory to basically store that. So if you've got some, we've got examples how to do that on Airtable, we just need someplace to store that in a database, right? Got it. And then we're talking to and from the database.
Sean, that also might be something we explore with like Twilio, because I know it's an automated common practice to say to opt into
true. We should look,
SMS because of the potential fees. So we might be able to find an option there.
That's true. That's true. They probably have some infrastructure for this. Honestly, this is a reason for us to maybe bump up the per conversation memory, because then that would sort of solve that problem generally for everybody too. That you wouldn't have to sort of do all of this extra work to spin up a database that's running somewhere on the internet, right? To basically remember these key value pairs.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So, but we'll look at both of those too, Mike. And thank you, Steve, for bringing that up, because specifically for SMS opt-in and opt-out, I'm sure we can rely on some of the services built. Yeah.
Awesome.
Other questions? Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Keep up your hard questions. It's great to see the progress. And then, please share feedback in this wider group with the actual real users. I think all of those insights are going to be helpful to everyone.
Sean, there was a very nice and simple feedback from one of the participants to share more examples on the WhatsApp group. I just wanted to get some consensus if others would also like that, or is there too much information? You guys want to like be heads down in your work and don't care about.
You can always mute us. I tend to believe like more is better. So I think we had a couple calls there. So Peter, as you've got your better eval thing and that's ready. Tash, as you've got, kind of these A/B experiments. We'd love to see that too. Again, we learn when we can review the work of others. Okay. Bye, everybody. Wish me luck. I'm going to go fly out.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.